This is Vicki Mutino, and this is my final project video for IDT 501 at SUNY Polytechnic. Today I'll talk about two subchapters from Katz's book, Designing Information, and explain how designers can use the techniques to improve visual information displays. We'll start with Data and Form, Katz Chapter 3, page 105. Katz says, "Let the data determine the form, not the other way around." I think some embellishment may help a graphic make its point, but I do feel that there's some serious issues with this image by Nigel Holmes. Number one, the data teeth don't line up on the baseline. Some have slightly wider bases, and some are slightly curved. It's not clear how big the data units are, so it's hard to tell, for example, whether 1972 or 1974 were the same size or more was spent in 1974. Number two, the monster is kind of cheesy. Cutesy clip art should be avoided. It makes the overall presentation look dated. And number three, the little gray drips of saliva or sweat have tiny dollar signs, but they don't really seem to represent anything. The solution is to eliminate chart junk and keep data scale consistent. I think it's important to keep charts visually interesting, but to make sure that they're legible. For this example, I took the basic graph and used color, typography, and additional imagery to add subtle emphasis to pertinent information. I removed the junk that got in the way of legibility and added visual interest and provided context to the information with photos of the presidential campaigners whose administration set expectations for party spending over that time. Number one, doing the bars in solid colors seemed to make them too heavy, so I used a gradient that got lighter as the bars got bigger. The gradient carries the eye upwards and across the chart. Number two, the campaigner photos were converted to black and white and resized for consistency. Number three, bright red was used for the chart title and blue for the labels. All other graphics, including chart bars, are in grayscale to keep the focus of attention on the most important information, which would be the title, the amount of spending, and the years. The changes make the chart easier to read. For example, now it's very clear that spending increased by approximately $20 million between 72 and 74. In Apples to Apples, Data Scale Consistency on page 107, Katz states, "Consistent scale is the only way to compare different statistic aspects of the same place, whether city, state, or country." I believe his point can be illustrated with this chart, mentioned by Walter Hickey in the 27 worst charts of all time in Business Insider. There are several problematic design choices in this graphic. First of all, logos are not proportionate to the amount of sales. Pizza Hut, for example, looks much smaller than KFC because it has a transparent background when the amount of sales is actually quite close, 8 billion to 8.2 billion. Moreover, the logos get larger in size as the reader moves from left to right, but the sales amount labels start off high on the y-axis, then go downwards, and finally go back upwards. It's confusing and it's hard to read because the labels are not placed in a consistent manner against the graph. So, do the logos actually provide any value at all? The smallest logos are difficult to read. Perhaps plain text labels would work better. Thirdly, why is Afghanistan here? It's not a fast food restaurant, it doesn't have a logo. It seems the designer wanted something real with which to compare the vast wealth of McDonald's. But by placing a political map in with a group of logos and positioning it behind the large Burger King and McDonald's logos, it distracts from the point, which is to compare fast food sales totals. I think we can do better. So the solution is to eliminate chart junk and keep data scale consistent again. By eliminating logos, placing an attention-grabbing image off to the side, incorporating a title, and moving the scale closer to the line items, data is much easier to read. Although results for Pizza Hut and KFC are very close, you can still see that KFC is just a little bit bigger. And it's easy to see that the high volume of sales from McDonald's. So that's all for my final presentation. Thanks for listening and have a great holiday.